Well, let's get to this episode of No Driving Gloves in that case. It's all three of us for a change. Some reason Will decided to stay home. I guess his wife grounded him. I don't think we've ever had an episode, really, that I've missed well, Derek did do that nice interview episode a couple of weeks back with Andy.
Weeks?
I can't remember. What was that?
Months? I think that was last year.
Well, that's still weeks.
And the only reason that you haven't missed one is because when you can't do it, we don't do it.
You guys have the equipment to do it. Podcasting's simple. A little bit of Google Hangout, a little bit of Audacity, 2 microphones. You be set. That's enough about the insides of podcasting. Have either one of you done anything exciting lately? I'm been distracted with a lot of things. Maybe I'll fill you in later. It's not really car related. It's podcast related, but it's not car related, so it really doesn't have a place on the wonderful No Driving Gloves.
That's all I've been doing is driving.
Did you wear gloves?
I drove, no, I actually had them off, so it was serious. Drove 33 hours for a 1-day, 6-hour car show.
And you wonder why I ended up electing to stay home.
And pulled a trailer. Sorry about the background noise there.
I was going to say, we'll note that Will's changed his recording setup to his lower level of his estate. Being as palatial as it is, his kids are hanging out with him.
It's just the echo down those massive marble-lined halls. That's the problem.
Yeah.
He has the staff whipping the children into shape, I believe.
That would be the dogs, not the staff. We might as well be staff as much as they cost, right?
Tell me about it. I think I got vet visits coming up next week for the animals.
Luckily, I'm doing some work for the local veterinarian, so we have a pretty good trade-out program.
I would wonder who actually bills more in that case.
The only time you have to wonder.
No, we took a trip. Actually, the last 2 weeks I've been gone because I was at the Atlanta Motorama, and then the weekend after that, we went to the car show at McPherson College. So that was kind of neat to go back to McPherson, and Friday afternoon I actually got to do a presentation to the students and some of the faculty and committee there. So that was pretty cool. Got to spend a little time with those guys and get to know some of them, because it's all changed from when John and I were there. I mean, we did go to school with Luke, but all the faculty's changed. The shop's been, moved around a lot. It's totally different from the way it was when we were there, other than the wood shop. The wood shop's still the same. So it was really neat being able to get to know some of the students and the faculty and the advisory board and all that stuff. It was cool. It was really neat. The Atlanta Motorama is just one heck of a show. Stuff going on for everybody, from monster trucks to track crews to autocross, show cars. I think they had Bonneville cars there in a special area this year. So it was really a good show. If you're in the area, you definitely need to be at that show next year.
Now, I've seen some of the pictures out of McPherson and that. What actually appeared, say, at this 6-hour car show? I know there was a Bugatti race car and they did the Model T build and some things like that. Was there anything really over-the-top exciting, or did what you bring, was that the hottest thing there?
Well, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm better than anybody, but
you are.
No, I'm not. Mostly it's a lot of local cars, but there were some really neat pieces there. That Bugatti race car. There was I don't know if it was a Cuda or a Challenger that was there. These were cars that were invited. That was really, really nice. And then one of the advisory board members had his real Cobra there that he's drove cross country, drove through Alaska. That was really, really cool. Seeing a real Cobra that has, road rash and daily driving type of car. And then a lot of just local cruise night type cars, that people enjoy and drive a lot. And then, going through the students' cars was pretty cool too. So, John, I don't know if you know, but, when we were in school there was a storage unit that got passed down to me from the class above me. And I guess that has become a trend at the school now. Now it's called the sheds. And just about every student has a storage unit out there. And they go out there at night and on the weekends and when they're not in class and work on their own cars there at that storage facility back behind the school. I thought that was really cool, because they don't allow you to really work on your own vehicles there at the school. That was really neat finding out some stuff like that. So the students there actually had some pretty full-blown projects going on. That was really neat to see.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it expanded. I know you guys, if I remember right, you crossed the street and went into the storage complex. And weren't you just there off to the right in like the first building or the second building?
Right. Our garage door actually faced the college. So, it was just basically walk across the street and we had a garage there.
Yeah, I had one like 3 in off to the left facing away from the college that there was a Fiat X19 in there that I had bought. And a lot of that stuff was mainly for that low-cost project that I was doing at the time and never ended up completing as projects go. But I do remember that I thought they were doing some student time in the shop or would allow that. But as a shop, as you as a shop owner and me working in shops, I remember job interviews and they tell you, oh, you can, on Friday we break down about noon and then you can bring your own car in for a few hours. And that never works because you never, by the time you get it in and taken apart, it's time to put it back together. And I'm glad to see the students are doing that, and I imagine there's probably some interesting stories and things going on there, but at least they're staying out of trouble, right?
Yeah. I wish, we would have, which, there was only, 13, 14 of us, and there's, I don't know how many, 200, 300 kids in the program now. I wish we would have done a little more of that. A little more bonding, gave us a place to go, off campus and drink beer and, do whatever we do. But I will tell you this about that show. Man, it was very, very, very well put on. There, if you were pre-registered, they had a line for you. If you wasn't pre-registered, they had a line for you. You pulled up. Kids came out, asked you your last name. They came back with all your stuff. You pulled right in there. They got you parked real quick. They had everything labeled real nice of, certain area of cars over here, certain area of cars over there, and the hot rods and customs over here, and the students, cars over here. It was very, very well put on. They announced everything multiple times so you didn't forget something like the Model T build or, tours of Templeton Hall. And Donald Osborne sung the national anthem. It was just a very, very well produced show. I was probably more impressed by that than any vehicle there.
I think Derek will even attest is that check-in, check-out, and operation makes or breaks any show. You can have wonderful cars, you can have, the best entertainment and stuff, but if that underlying organization isn't there, no offense, but the show's crap. That's what I'm gonna remember. It was a crappy show. Yeah, they had a cool car, but
100%.
Is that where I'm supposed to say I agree?
No, we're just editing you out on that portion.
I would agree with that, John, 100%. I've been to a few very well-known, very well-attended shows that I have disliked due to very poor vehicle entry pathways. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know. When I took over the swap meet for the Barber Vintage Festival, one of the first things I did is totally revamp the check-in procedure. And everybody who had been coming for 11 years prior called me before and told me it was going to be the worst thing ever. And afterwards, I was told not to change a thing by our staff and everybody who came through that check-in procedure. It just, I think that's the best thing. It's one of my biggest irritants at some of the big national shows. Just even going in as a spectator, sometimes it's a little bit rough. And going in as a participant, you really need to take care of them.
For anyone thinking about putting on a show and getting vehicles in and out, and you plan on having brass era vehicles in the show, please do remember that brass era vehicles don't always like to sit and just idle for ever and ever and ever and ever. They oftentimes like to move a little bit to stay kind of cool. So
race cars also fall into that category, as most of them don't have cooling systems. They do not like the idling, nor do they like stop and go. Race cars have 2 speeds, stop and fast. And anything in between is kind of a pain. Weakness. Blah, 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 blah. Let me start that over. Do we transition into a topic here? I don't think... I got it. So, we've talked a little about the shows and that. I'm working on the transition here into the show topic, guys. We're a little bit into the show, but I think recapping McPherson was a nice thing. I do support that, even though I didn't make the show this year. Maybe I'll make number 21.
You guys don't want to know what I've been doing that's interesting?
Okay, what you been doing, Derek?
Really nothing. Going to work, coming home from work, working on my Falcon.
Tell us about what you've been. Tell us what you've been doing about the Falcon, because you really can't tell us about what you do at the museum officially, because now you're probably in some super secret project, coming up with like the. I'm not going to be mean, but something that's going on in Kentucky, because now that you have your new emissions center open and you've done a couple special exhibits, I'm sure a new one's in the works. But
there's a few things coming up.
What do you got going on with your Falcon? Anything special? You're going to have that out on the show season? Be taking it to some AACA meets and such?
No, I don't really like going to shows that much with my cars. I prefer to drive them. So the plan is to drive it to and from work this summer. Getting it ready to go back on the road, John. That's the plan. You
don't like driving them to shows?
Well, yeah, but then I usually park in the normal parking lot and walk around the show, and then I leave when I get bored.
Because you're tight and don't want to pay the fee to go in there and just leave when you want to leave?
I just don't want to sit around all day.
Derek doesn't have any friends in Bowling Green yet. He's only been there 2 years. All his friends are in Michigan.
That's how you make friends, is go to car shows and park next to people.
We've left.
Why you guys picking on me?
It's either that or he's all his friends think he drives Chevys. They got him out of that horrible Ford, and he's in that Chevy pick-em-up.
GMC. It is a GMC.
He's in that Chevy pick-em-up and with the fancy badge. But you've got to be in your General Motors project. Never mind. Let's go ahead and talk about rapping.
Dr. Dre?
Well, this
Eminem?
This downhill.
Derek, your mic was breaking up there, and that sounded very Oaktown. Chatting, and we're going, is there any advantages to wrapping a car or, quote, spray dipping a car with the plastic? It's known as spray wrap, and there's all these YouTube videos out right now, and there's wrapping a car and getting you really interested in how quickly to vinyl wrap and how easy it is. And a couple of my car wrapping friends have really lambasted that video. They have given her some props. She kind of, in areas, knows what she's doing, and in other areas, not. Will kind of said, what about wrapping a car? Is there a time to do it? Is there a time not to do it? Is there a reason to do it? Is there advantages? And then I've got some friends that work with one of the vinyl spray coating companies, not really paint, but spray it on your car, and then when you want to change the color, you just peel it right off and go. Or should we just ignore this type of application and color changing, and is painting a car the way to go? And we kind of started talking about it before the show and started to roll with some ideas, and we said, hey, let's just throw it on the show and see what we hash out here. So see what we know, what we don't know, and maybe we'll say something really wrong and we'll get a couple people to correct us.
All right, well, I'll kick this off then. So, obviously most of my life has been more experience with painting cars. Growing up, the restoration world, I grew up around being involved with painting cars from all different eras. Now kind of at the Corvette Museum, I've had a little more experience with vinyl wrapping. We actually have a Corvette racing simulator that, when it came in, was in a vinyl wrap that we didn't want it in, so we removed that vinyl wrap and had a different vinyl wrap put on it. And I will say that, vinyl wrapping, when it comes to in my opinion, the labor intensity of prepping a car for paint and then painting it and finishing it with all of your, wet sanding and buffing and everything like that, vinyl wrap is a much less labor intensive process, especially if you're paying for someone to do it. But if you're doing it yourself, even the removal of an old wrap and the application of a new wrap, if you're talented enough to do it, in my opinion, and Will, you might differ on this, you might not, but I think the labor intensity of it is it's just much less. It's a much simpler process.
Oh, without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. Even if you're painting it back the same color and not painting door jambs or anything like that, wrapping is a whole lot less labor intensive than painting. I will say this, though, on Scotty's Denali, it was wrapped over paint that was put on the Denali in 05. And, it had its normal dents and dings and, nothing major at all. And when Nate got there to do the wrap, I gave him a piece of tape and I said, hey, I've never had anything professionally wrapped before. Take this roll of tape while I'm finishing up this side, and on the other side, if you see something that needs to be fixed, just go ahead and tear off the little piece of tape and put it on it. So I was working on my side. I was over there for about 30 minutes or so, and I walked around to where Nate was on there, and he'd basically taped the whole side of the Denali. And I was like, oh, crap, this thing's basically got to be ready for paint. And he said, oh, yeah, if not, then you'll see it. So I will say this, if you're wrapping a vehicle that's older, that's never been wrapped, you do pretty much have to get it prepped and ready to spray. Not quite to the extent of everything ready to spray and sanded, and it don't really hide anything. And I know that's kind of a myth that's been spread over the last several years about a vehicle that's been wrapped. Now, don't get me wrong, you unwrap Scotty's Denali and there's some primer spots and stuff like that. But, wrapping a vehicle is not covering stuff up. Even the Rocket Camaro, we unwrapped it, a couple of months ago, and, there were primer spots and, there were, of course, we knew there were some issues with the wrap because you could see where it was starting to lift. That car was in really pretty decent shape. So, I'm sure you could use it to cover up some stuff, but you would be able to tell just like if you were painting something and trying to cover something up.
And that's what wrapping really comes down to is, there's a lot of times that when I'm doing an appraisal or something on a car and I have my paint meter, it will read through a vinyl application to a car, whether it's wrapped or whether it's, hood stripes or graphics, screaming chicken on the hood. You can get the thickness of the vinyl. And the vinyl's a lot of the time 6 to 10 mil thick, which is not that much thicker, if any thicker, than an aftermarket paint job. A lot of factory paint jobs are about 5-6 mils thick at the most. Most aftermarket paint jobs, you're looking 10-15 mil thick, maybe, depending on what level of prep and how many layers of primer and stuff are there. So Will's right. There's, the wrap's going to go on and the entire thing's sticky, just like a paint application. So if you've got a door ding, if you've got a wave in the panel, if you've got a significant rot chip, you've got to do something to level that surface and make the car straight. Otherwise, it's just like, if you're doing gloss, the gloss is going to highlight it, just like if you painted it. And if you do matte, it's going to be the same thing. There's no stretching over it. There's no forgiving. Now, the spray-on vinyl dip stuff, it covers it up, but I'm going to be honest, it's horrible to remove. It's horrible to... It never gives you that new car appearance. It's a good 25-foot way to change the color of your car, in my opinion. It's not good for up-close stuff. Wrapping, I don't think you're going to see Will put a car on the big show circuit that's completely wrapped. I know the Scotty D vehicle is a wrap, but there were budget concerns in that. But you're not going to see something at the Grand National Roadster Show that's wrapped.
Not yet. I think you will one day, because they're wrapping.
I was just going to say that. How long do we think?
I don't know, 5 years, 5 to 10 years.
I could see that in that when you start getting into what they're going to be able to do with wraps compared to paint. I mean, there's going to be certain details. I've seen variable colors of suede wraps. You can do a wrap that is an absolute mirror finish. You can do gold impregnated wraps and things like that, which I think is cheaper to do on a manufactured product like that than trying to, have Will grind up a bar of gold and then have his painter mix that into some paint and spray it on a car.
They're already wrapping door jambs and underhood panels and inner fenders, and they're already doing that. How much longer is it going to be before you can do a seamless wrap on dang near a whole car? I think it's coming, and wrapping a vehicle has its place. Do I think you'll ever be able to get a wrap as good as you can do a wet sanded and buff paint job? No, I don't. I hope I'm proved wrong one day, but there's something about a mirrored finish paint job on a car that's just strikingly beautiful.
I hear a lot of criticism on wraps and why do you want to do it, that's cheating, etc. And what caught me by surprise, and now it would be 6 years ago, and I've had two of them, my Hyundai Velocitors, both of them had piano black finishes on like the front A-pillars and that, and the front A-pillars are actually wrapped from the factory. The mirrors are wrapped from the factory. It's a thick vinyl. It's a little bit more than I think the 3M stuff that you're going to run through your Cricut that you bought off of Amazon. But those aren't painted components. Those aren't molded that way. The Velocitor, the A-pillars are molded in a matte black, but if you get the piano black finish, all the piano black finish is a wrap. And it really, amazed me that the color of the mirror was the wrap. So I'm going to maybe they, okay, we're going to wrap the mirrors and we're going to wrap, I don't know what other portions of the car were wrapped. And then do they match the paint? Is the paint formulated to match the wraps, or the wraps to the paint? It's kind of, interesting there. My 2012 Veloster is the first car I ever wrapped myself, and I fell victim to what we just discussed about the dings. Is there were some dimples in the front bumper of the Veloster for your front license plate bracket, and Alabama is not a state that requires that. But I went ahead and wrapped it and go, oh, you'll never notice it. And I stretched the vinyl tight over it, and you didn't see it that first night. And then the next day it got warm, and the vinyl got soft, and it sunk right into those, and I had 4 little dimples in the front of that car to the day I traded it. I always swore I'd go back and fix it, but we all know sometimes how well I am at going back and doing something that's upset me.
And I think, if you're buying an exotic or a new car, or that you want it color changed, wrap's the way to go 100%. And, you're preserving that factory finish on that car. You're not getting it scratched up. You're not, if you get a ding in it, you get a ding in it. A wrap ain't going to do no good. But, you're actually kind of preserving the factory status of that vehicle. So, I honestly think that it's a good thing. Does it keep me from getting some jobs and some work? Probably, but I think there's enough of it to go around for everybody right now.
I hear, and sitting around talking to some car people that really aren't in the know, or you really don't put 2 and 2 together. You're right, Will. If you go out and buy a brand new Murcielago, and why do I say Murcielago? Is that even the current? Duh. You go out and buy a brand new Aventador, and it comes bright orange, and oh no, you want, apple green or something. So you go ahead and wrap it, and you go, oh, you should have painted it. Wrapping's cheap. That's the easy way out. Well, some of those wraps are serious in 5-figure jobs, but you do preserve the original finishes. The wrap will 98% of the time come off without damaging the subsurface if it's properly prepared. That's the difference between your cheap wrap jobs and your higher end stuff, is how well the surface was prepared, the qualities of the vinyl. But, okay, you don't want to do a color change, but you want to preserve that paint. The biggest thing, it seems right now, is all of the clear bras and such that everybody's putting on your car. Basically, you're wrapping your car in clear. If you go out and you buy a new Ford GT and you clear bra the mirrors, and you clear bra the doors, and you clear bra, behind the wheel wells, and then you clear bra the whole front clip, you've effectively wrapped the car. If you wanted to change the color, change the color. The difference is the clear bras are a couple mils thicker than what the wrap is usually, but you can cut them on the same vinyl plotter. You can, you utilize virtually the same program on doing it. There's no difference, and I've got friends that will criticize any wrap job, but their whole car is clear brod. Everything, nose to tail, is all clear brod, so it can't get scratched or chipped.
Well, but that's different.
It's clear, right? You can see.
Exactly.
You can see through me.
Exactly. It's my favorite color, clear.
Yeah, but you got to be careful. If you order the wrong clear, the car disappears.
Yeah, no, that's camouflage.
Yeah, that's camouflage.
Obviously, I'm agreeing. I think we are all kind of in agreement here. From a preservation side of things, in the short term, I will say it likely will preserve that. But being from the world of objects conservation, after a while, who knows what that adhesive is going to do to the paint underneath? And by a while, I mean 50 plus 100 years. There's always worries about what any chemical on top of another chemical surface how it will react. I'm one of those oddballs that worry about 100 years from now. But I think the cool thing, or the interesting thing with vinyl that is very difficult, if not almost impossible, to do in a paint situation with a paint job is the ability to do more realistic images on vehicles. Airbrushing, some of those guys get very, very good images out of airbrushing, but when you're printing a picture directly on vinyl, you're getting a whole nother level of quality of an image versus what can be airbrushed onto a vehicle. So I think that's another area where, Will, with some of the probably hot rods at different shows, in my thought, is that is possibly where some more vinyl will start peeking its way in, is with like high quality images being involved in the finish. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. If you're doing like, I'm not really sure how like ISCA looks at that. Yeah, I could definitely see some stuff like that going on. I think, you're absolutely on point as far as printing an image versus painting an image. You're going to get more clarity, more depth with a printed image than an airbrushed image, and in a 16th of the time as well. Where it really benefits is in your advertisement type things, like the Rocket Camaro. The whole reason we're building that car again is strictly for it, obviously, to be more competitive, but for a marketing standpoint for Rocket Racing Wheels. So he could print one of the wheels on the wrap, and bam, there it is. It's in your face. It's on the car, and then there's a printed wheel on the wrap. Anything from that to a plumbing vehicle running down the road where it looks like somebody's sitting on the toilet as they're driving the vehicle. I know we've all seen that. And painting that, don't get me wrong, like you said, there's guys out there that can paint it and it'd be really nice and realistic, but you're printing it versus painting it. And the biggest thing in my eyes is the time thing. If you're paying somebody to sit there and paint that, you're looking at days and days where you just hit program it in there and hit print, it's printed, and then you save it, and if something happens to it, you just print another one. Definitely the way to go in advertisement. And I don't want anybody to think that, to me, there's nothing cooler than a hand-lettered, 60s gasser. But in the modern day with NASCAR and NHRA and even these autocross cars, most of these autocross cars are wrapped. A lot of, several of them are still painted, but, a lot of them are wrapped. And you can change the way your car looks overnight, basically. There's no replacing that. It's here to stay, and it's not going nowhere. And it's really the things that they're doing with wrap is pretty cool.
You see, I guess I look at it as it's something that I find acceptable for modern cars, things that you're going to drive, things you're going to go into the showroom and buy. Definitely advertising, especially when you get into the perforated wraps that you can put on windows and still see through. And, some of that one-way stuff is just amazing to me. You're right. You can print off a whole NASCAR car and, quote, one big sheet of vinyl and lay it on there. There's rumors, I've never seen them, I've read the articles, that there's some shops in Europe that, say you have a BMW 1 Series, you can pull in there and say, hey, I want my car blue. They'll type a couple of things into their computer and they print off a pre-cut blue BMW for you, roll it up, send you home, and you wrap your BMW in blue. And then 8 weeks later, you want that car in yellow, you go in, you tell them everything's already CAD scanned in, everything's ready. They're able to pre-print the pieces and, you lay them on your car. How that affects jams and door handles and logos and things like that, that's the difference between me wrapping at home and a professional wrapping. By far and away, I've got a friend that wraps vehicles for a living. He wraps cars for athletes, sports stars, entertainers. And I mean, Aston Martin doesn't deliver the car to the purchaser. They deliver him to this guy's garage, and he totally changes the color of the car. But he pulls the headlights out, pulls the door handles off, pulls every trim piece off the car, pulls the rockers out. And when he's done, you don't see a bit of the original paint, except down into the engine compartment maybe. But if the hood's shut, you won't see a bit of the original color. It's just, level it takes. And, you're talking sometimes 30, 40 hours to wrap a car. Or he's, wraps boats, wraps airplanes. It's really an art to do it and do it right. When he prints up wraps and cuts the wraps for, say, a Mini, and he lays it out on the front, a Mini hood, it's cut perfectly around the Mini badge. Weird. Or vice versa. If you just want to wrap your Mini badge, he can print you your Mini badge, and you can change the color of your badge, and it fits perfectly. The numbers and the codes are in the machines, and you just have to buy the right program, and then you just print it off. I don't know how to take apart, an Aston Martin, and the next day take apart a Lamborghini, and the next day take apart a GT3, and then the next day take apart a Testarossa. It's really a talent to do it and do it right. I've seen some friends have cars done, and I've seen some cars done that you just go, oh, they spent $300,000 on this car, and they paid $20,000 for this wrap, and I can tell the car was originally white, and they wrapped it in matte gray or something. And that's inexcusable to me. But research. If you choose to go the wrapping route, research it. See some of the jobs the guy's done. See what's happened. It appears easy, but like everything else in this world, nothing is easy to do or accomplish.
Right.
Hey, painting a car appears easy too, and I think as we can all attest, it's not.
They do it in a day on TV.
Exactly. A day less than an hour.
3.5 minutes the last show I watched.
Exactly.
I've become pretty good friends with Nate Krause, who owns IVS Wraps. And I think he had 6 cars at SEMA last year. Pretty known guy in the wrap industry, wrap game, whatever you want to call it. If you guys want to hear more about it, let us know through our social media, and we'll see if we can't get Nate on the podcast and send us some questions about it, and we'll be glad to ask him and see if we can get him on the podcast. And I'm sure we'll all learn something if we have Nate on here about wrapping vehicles and really what it takes. Because he's like your buddy John. He, every time he sends me a picture, there's a new Lamborghini or Ferrari or something in there kind of crazy that he's doing. He's even doing some local asphalt race cars and stuff. So,
and I can get my guy on too. So I mean, if the listeners definitely want, we'll get a professional rapper on here to discuss this. In a touch of irony, my rapping friend out of Atlanta, he had a Project Jeep of his own that was kind of halfway wrapped, and the rest of the wrap got destroyed or something, and he ended up selling the Jeep. So he was going to complete the wrap, and then he couldn't find a matching color, so in a rush, he stripped all the wrap off and painted the car. So it's just one of those little odd things. He can do both, and like I say, he does all kinds of things, but it just, as we're talking, there are times that wrap won't work. Earlier, I was thinking you could go ahead and, you always have, it's easier to match colors. But if the manufacturer goes away, or if it was an oddball color or something, I guess wrapping even presents that same challenge as a red car. Lots of luck in matching the final paint.
Covered it pretty well, and I mean, I think it's like a lot of things we talk about. It comes down to it's good for some things, it's bad for other things. Probably the thing it's best for is obviously more modern vehicles. And my experience with it, it's been at the Rapid A Corvette Racing Simulator. So we've got a fiberglass car, body panels that don't get dented, they don't rust, they don't have all these issues. So on something like a Corvette, it's actually very good because you don't have to worry about those dings and dents showing and all these oddball situations. So in the case I've experienced it with, it's working great. I mean, it's fantastic. We were able to change the color of a car from blue to Corvette Racing yellow and decal it up to look like a C6R race car. And people love it, and they have a blast getting in it and driving it, and simulated driving it on the screens in front of them. It works well for that purpose, and I know there's a lot of actually at our event just a couple weeks ago at the museum, there was another vinyl wrapped Corvette that caught a number of people's eyes, including myself and my team that work on the cars at the museum, because it was highlighter green. I mean, you imagine, you think of your highlighter yellow, your very famous, well-known bright yellow, but then there's, of course, the other ones. You've got that bright, intense green highlighter. It was that color. I mean, it was highlighter green with black accents. It looked like it was glowing in the middle of the day. It was, we went and talked to the guys that had it there and looked at it. It was a very well done vinyl wrap. You had to look very closely to see that it was vinyl. Chit-chatting with them about it and just kind of stuff like that. And they were there, just because they're Corvette fans and they love it, but they also own the company that does the vinyl wrapping and were showing off what they could do. The other thing that we talked about in the pre-show that I don't think we've talked about yet is some of the crazy things they're doing with the vinyl wraps, other than printing images, things like that. But they now have color changing vinyl when it gets hit with hot water or cold water, or I don't remember everything we listed off, self-healing if it gets nicked or damaged. So there's a lot of technology going into vinyl wrap, what it's capable of doing on the car after installation. Well, you have it on there for years after it's been installed.
It's just an emerging technology. We're touching on it a little bit as three self-admittedly amateurs on it. If the listeners want to know more about that, we'll definitely have somebody on who knows what the heck they're talking about. It's also, I'm going here, and oh man, now we need to have a paint powder coat discussion. But maybe we'll go ahead and bring that powder coating expert on and interview him and discuss some of the ins and outs of powder coating. And while this doesn't necessarily touch on the collector car topic from history, I don't think any of us are endorsing that when you're restoring your 1957 Chrysler 300C convertible, you go ahead and wrap it instead of paint it. But
now wait, because we have to think about that. I'm trying to remember the name of something, so I'm stalling. If I'm remembering correctly, was it not called Dynoc, which was the faux wood grain wrap that you would put on the cars for the faux wood graining?
Yeah, that wasn't a 50s, was it? I thought that didn't come in a little bit later.
No, it was like late 50s and into the 60s that they had the fake kind of vinyl, stick-on wood grain on some of the Woodies.
I'm trying to remember. I definitely know the 70s fake wood grain and the 60s fake wood grain and the 80s fake wood grain.
It may have been 60s. I might be pushing it, stepping back into the late 50s, but yeah. I'm pretty sure it came out in probably the 60s. So I'm just saying we have to look back, and there were things like this back with some of these collector cars.
Well, I do. I know 62 sticking in my head, knowing it existed then. And then the flip side, I'm thinking of 50s Town and Country that was wood.
Oh, yeah, The price of the Town and Country.
Somewhere in that 12-year span, you're right, some of that stuff did get introduced. And it goes back to trying to figure out that. But I'm pretty safe to say that a Chrysler 300C convertible never came with wood grain.
No, but it looks sweet with it on there.
Well, there was a couple of years ago when I had my 12 Fiat 500 Sport. It was this dark green, and if I would have ever got the dumb thing to run and the dealership, if I didn't have the problems I did with it, the first thing I was going to do is put one of those wood grain wraps on it. It just seemed to scream it, but that's me and my oddball love of certain things.
And if we want to step way back in time to the good old days in the late 20s and into the 30s, and you really want to get into restoration work, you have to remember that back then they actually wood grained some of the interior components with a painting technique. They would actually use different colors of paint to make it look like the interior had wood in it.
Oh yeah, that was something Will and I both did while we were at McPherson.
Mm-hmm. I have a wood graining tool, so.
Yep, I have the same in the garage. It's been years since I did that, and to be honest, here we are on another. You've now introduced a new technology. I've seen a shop recently redo a 50s era Plymouth, and they hydro dipped all the wood grained metal.
Oh yeah.
So there's a whole nother technology that we can discuss. And I guess I'm going to kind of wrap it up here a little bit. But
pun intended.
Yeah. But to wrap it up, we've now touched on wrapping vehicles, and we've touched on powder coating, and now touched on hydro dipping. And if any of the listeners want us to discuss, or if you have questions about these topics, let us know. And the three of us will research it and finding an expert to come on the show and ask your questions to. I think it's very valid. And now that all of a sudden I've introduced hydro dipping to the restoration process, Derek's introduced vinyl wrapping to an unknown, undisclosed date and time, and Will's thrown it out there that his next a Riddler contender will be vinyl wrapped.
Easy now. Well, no, that's fine because I don't ever plan on building another car.
I was just going to end it with the one question. You're not allowed to show any pictures of the car in paint. Can you show the car in vinyl?
I tell you what, you need to go read the new rules for the Riddler, and you will laugh your tail off. You can't even. I couldn't send you a text message picture of any part on it. The guy doing the rendering for you cannot email you the rendering. Get you some of that.
I'm glad to know they're embracing technology.
That's right. Mm-hmm. They better get with the times. There ain't going to be nothing left in Detroit for the Autorama.
And with Will's profound statement, I'm out of here tonight, guys. Talk to you later.
I'm out. Later.
See you later. Bye, Will.
Bye.
Bye, John.
Bye.